Hey friend, welcome to the channel. I hope you're having a great day. Today I'm going to be reviewing Grand Prix, a classic 1966 racing film. And the question is, can it hold up against the current day racing films such as Rush or Ford vs. Ferrari? Let's talk about it. The story of Grand Prix follows four Formula One racers as they all compete in the circuit to win the World Championship Cup. And along the way, we learn more about their personal lives and relationships. So let's jump in with some of the things that I really liked about this movie. I already mentioned that there's four racers that we're following in the film. And the really cool thing is that they're all really distinct and really unique. One driver is the young gun, hotshot rookie who's coming up and he's got his whole career ahead of him. The next guy is an old pro. He's only got a couple more seasons left in him and he's seen a ton of racing in his day. The other two guys are in their prime. The one guy is seen as too reckless and he's having trouble finding a team. And the other guy is off of a huge wreck which forced him into hospitalization and massive recovery for months and months. And so he's coming back with a force trying to prove that he can still win. So we're getting this mix of experience and personalities, which keeps things really fresh and lively and fun. But on top of that, they're presented as roughly equal in terms of their skill as racers. We never have a good bead on exactly who's going to win the world championship. So every race has all this drama, all of this tension in it because we really are on the edge of our seat. Who's gonna win? I don't know. It just makes the whole experience really engaging. It's like watching a real race. Speaking of watching races, this movie looks spectacular. The quality of the cameras they used to capture these amazing racing scenes and even the regular scenes of people interacting or talking are just stunningly beautiful. And in particular, the racing scenes were insane. We're getting so many of these incredibly high-speed shots on the car, above the car, around the car, next to the car, around the corners. We're getting POV shots of the car running down hills and around corners. We're just getting every conceivable angle we can possibly get for these cars to get the full breadth and width of what the experience is like of being in one of these cars, and it's just incredible. So let's talk about some of the not so great stuff. Now, while the racing scenes are really high energy, really cool to look at, the movie does get bogged down. Now, each of the four racers in the movie has a love interest, and the movie spends a significant amount of time with each love interest as we get to know the racers in their personal lives, and so we're committing a ton of screen time to these different relationships, and they each have a different level of relevance to the story. I honestly think you could have gotten across the same points in a much more streamlined manner, because the one thing we're getting in a lot of these scenes are the same scene with different characters. We have the one racer and his girlfriend talking, and she asks a question and he answers it. And then we have another scene later in the film with a different racer and his girlfriend, and she asks him the same question in a slightly different way. And he gives roughly the same answer. And we do that for all of the racers. And so there's just a lot of padded screen time because we're covering the same ground over and over again. Had we just had one or two scenes very cleanly structured that conveyed this information very, very quickly, succinctly, and we would have been one and done. We could have cut out half an hour of runtime had we done that, and it would have had the same emotional impact for the movie. But this kind of pacing is what you have to expect from movies from the 60s. I mean, it was just a slower paced time in film. You had moments of high energy and high impact, but for the most part, things just sort of took their time. Another key hallmark of the 60s was weird cross dissolves and multi-shot frames. Now, this movie has a lot of both of those. There's a lot of kind of awkward cross-dissolve shots that just take way too long. And then we have just a ton of these multi-shots all throughout the film, especially near the beginning of the movie. But basically in any race, there's a lot of these shots interspersed, and they just feel really awkward and clunky. At the time in the 60s, doing this kind of stuff was actually really difficult. Duplicating footage, spreading it out multiple times across frame. it was actually technically a little challenging to do that. And so it was kind of the thing you would do in a big budget movie. But nowadays with computers, that's the kind of thing you see on really badly produced like wedding montages. But again, you kind of have to give it some leeway because it was the 60s. And at the time, it was just the thing to do. With all that being said, my final rating for Grand Prix is going to be a 7 out of 10. You know, if you're a fan of Ford vs. Ferrari or Rush, this movie really is what those movies are. I mean, it's the same exact kind of movie. It just has a different sensibility in terms of the way it's presenting the racing scenes and the way it's presenting the interpersonal relationships of the characters. But it is very much in that vein, very enjoyable. So if you like those movies and you haven't seen this one, check it out. I think you're really going to like it. Thanks so much for watching my review of Grand Prix. If you guys like the content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out a lot.